Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Fresh Finds and Good Times podcast. I'm Jacob Reiling.
I'm Katy Reiling.
I'm Hailey Reiling.
In this podcast, we will be discussing a wide variety of topics and reviewing a variety of things from movies to new music to TV shows to video games, as well as diving into other topics as well, such as restaurants and other new venues that are popping up in Iowa, as well as new beverages and snacks from popular companies. In the first episode today, we will be discussing Sony and talking about physical media. Sony has announced that they will be ceasing production of physical discs for their PS5 console starting in 2028. I, for one, feel that, people might be annoyed by this because some people like owning their physical media. They don't necessarily like the idea of just having to have everything on a cloud, on a streaming platform. What do you guys think about this?
I think that people might have some opposition to it because they're not actually owning that media, and if they decide to cease, supporting that download, then what you've paid for, you've essentially wasted your money because you're not able to keep it.
Hailey, what do you think of this?
I would have to agree with what you said. Just not being able to physically own your stuff and just knowing the fact that it can be taken away at any time. It's really turn a lot of people off.
This is exactly what happened to Telltale Games when they went bankrupt in 2018. A lot of their games got delisted from that platform, Steam, and many people cited this as an example of why physical media is important, because when you only have it on streaming platforms like Steam, for example, it can just be taken away at any time, and there's no getting it back. This is exactly why some people like to go to places like, for example, there is a store here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa called Razzle Dazzle, and they specialize in used DVDs as well as CDs, cassette tapes, and vinyl records. People like hunting these down because sometimes the DVDs, for example, will have bonus features, deleted scenes, interviews, and other things that you cannot find on the streaming platforms. And also, sometimes the DVDs and Blu-rays will also come with like unrated versions or director's cuts that are not shown on TV. And that is a reason why I believe that physical media is important.
And also, when you have physical media, records, for example, you have the album covers, which are a expression of the artist and their their side, creativity side. And people like to be able to look at, all the unique information that is housed within that record, whether it's the sleeve on the inside or on the outside.
Exactly. And the reason why, that is exactly the reason why vinyl has made such a big comeback since the late 2000s, is because people don't necessarily like the idea of just having all their music on a phone. People like the idea of being able to take the album out, looking at the artwork, putting it down on the record player, and setting the needle down. It's an experience, whereas just merely playing something on a computer, there's nothing to it. Whereas in vinyl, also, again, they can't take it away from you, and many artists will sometimes remove their music from platforms if for various reasons. Sometimes artists will remove their music from streaming platforms if they feel, say, they're not getting paid enough royalties, because it has been said time and time again that physical media sales. It has been said time and time again that physical media sales often pay artists a lot more in royalties than streaming services. Artists often have to have like hundreds of thousands of streams just to even hit a small fraction of sales in royalties. And that's why a lot of people will go out there and buy physical media to support their favorite artist.
And also, when you listen to music on a record, the sound quality is vastly different than something that's downloaded.
Exactly. And that's a good point. it has been said that vinyl has an analog warmth to it that is not even isn't replicated on CD. But that is because CDs are often heavily compressed, and that is something called the loudness war that started in the 80s or 90s, 80s, 90s. Whereas vinyl, you have to have it mastered a certain way so that it doesn't sound distorted or it doesn't cause the needle to jump out of the grooves of the record. CDs, however, on the other hand, are digital. So they, of course, master them as loud as possible. And in some cases, it just compresses it. And it oftentimes results in it not sounding as good as the original recording, which is why sometimes people will actively seek out the vinyl copies of their favorite albums because they often sound a lot better than CDs. And vinyl sometimes will last longer than CDs if they are properly stored, because if a CD gets severely scratched enough, sometimes it'll just ruin the disc. It can't be fixed. Whereas if a vinyl gets minor scratches, it may just cause it to pop or skip a little, but it'll still play properly, provided it is properly stored. I mean, we all know that 8 tracks and cassette tapes started to take over vinyl in the 60s and 70s, but 8 tracks and cassettes can get warped. The tape can get chewed. They can just get damaged a lot faster than vinyl can. And that's why a lot of people are going back to records, because they look cool. They last a lot longer. Sure, they are a lot more notoriously expensive than they were in the 80s and 90s. But the experience of buying a record and then playing it is what has kept people to it for as long as it has.
What's your take on that, Hailey? What do you think?
I mean, I'd have to agree with you guys that the vinyl definitely sounds a lot better and just really does have this rich warmth to it that you just really can't get with other forms of media.
Now the thing is, a lot of modern vinyl records are recorded digitally. They're mastered digitally, so of course it's not going to have the same analog warmth that say a record from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s is going to have, because those were mastered and recorded on analog tape. So, the analog warmth factor isn't really there on modern vinyl unless it's, say, an artist who specifically records on analog tape, because some artists do not like how their voices sound on digital. So they will literally go out and seek analog tape and tape machines to record their music because it just sounds more natural and authentic and warm than if you record digitally, even though digital by today's standards is a lot easier because, pop in the hard drive, you hit record, you're done. Whereas tape, it's more of a process.
And to prove that this is still a thing, U2 has dropped a new single today. What is it called, Jacob?
Street something. Let me look up the name of it real quick.
They've dropped a new single today and are...
Street of Dreams. That's it.
New single, Street of Dreams. And they are coming out with a new album that is yet to be named. And this will be available in vinyl form, which just tells you this continues. And
some artists today will release albums with special bonus tracks or other things that are only available on the CD and vinyl editions. They do this basically as a way to encourage fans to purchase the physical album instead of just merely streaming it. And yes, this does upset some fans who don't have ways of listening to it, but it shows that people like, again, owning physical media. They don't just want everything on streaming. This is, for example, a lot of video games back in the 70s and 80s, obviously they all used ROM or random optical memory cartridges. And a lot of games started going towards disc in the 90s. Now, a lot of people feel that modern video games, because apparently I've heard a lot of modern video games, all that happens is you pop the disc in and it just takes you to a download link or something. A lot of people there are people who won't play modern video games literally because they constantly require updates. Anyways, and I feel that, yes, older video games are better because it's you play it and that's it. There is no, I have to keep putting on firmware updates and software updates and patches.
Or I have to keep spending extra money to get to a new level on the game.
Yep, that's a good point. There are video games out there where it's you have gotten to this point in the game. You want to continue? That's an extra $5-10 a month. And it's like, no, not everybody wants to have to subscribe to a platform. That's why some people will go back to like Atari, Sega. They'll even go back to like older Nintendos or like PS2, PS3, because they don't want to have to keep having downloads and updates just to keep playing their game. And the other thing is, a lot of modern video games will take up around 50 to 100 gigs on a hard drive or SSD now, and some people just do not care for that.
So we think that, possibly so people may, when this happens with Sony may realize that, people are, going to shift their business from them to other game platforms, that still allow them to have a physical disc.
Speaking of physical media, companies like Walmart and Target have slowly been scaling back in-store physical sales of video games and movies and TV shows. Like Walmart, for example, they still sell physical video games as well as box sets of DVDs and TV shows. Target, however, a few years ago made the decision to switch exclusively to just online sales of that stuff, which I know that caused some backlash amongst people because they liked the idea of being able to go into the store and pick out what they wanted. And now people are having to seek out local shops or even places like eBay or Goodwill and like other thrift stores just to find the DVDs they want.
Or video games, etc. Or, places like that where people will, or you can even go to Goodwill and you'd be surprised what you could find there.
Oh yeah, there's literally people at Goodwill who will go there just to see what kind of VHS tapes they carry. Because VHS tapes do have a certain analog look to them that you don't get with DVD. And, yes, they do break a lot more easily than DVDs. They, again, just have a certain retro look that you're not getting with a digital format like DVD. And that's why, there are even movies and TV shows like Disney's Song of the South, for example, that were never released on DVD and not even released in this country because they contain things that some people would find offensive. And so as a result, they were only released in certain countries like Japan and other countries in Asia. And people will literally pay hundreds of dollars just to get those copies shipped to the US just so they can watch them, because these movies are not on streaming platforms because, again, of the potentially offensive material that's in them.
So it just shows you that people do like to have different forms of, media, that they don't want everything stored on their phone because, what if your phone gets hacked or what have you? You're losing all of that, information. Yeah. Whereas if you have a physical copy of something, you don't have to worry about that.
Also, or what if, say, your hard drive crashes or your computer crashes and you have all your movies and TV shows on there, you can basically say goodbye to all of them. Hailey, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that's why it's important to make sure you back up your stuff and keep your physical copies. You never know when something might crash or the server shut down, whatever the case may be.
Oh, same thing with popular TV shows like Friends, for example. Sometimes they'll literally shift from one streaming platform to another because of rights expiring and other things and licensing new deals and stuff. And that upsets people because they're like, oh crap, I have this streaming platform. It has my favorite show on it. But now the show is leaving and moving to this platform, but I don't want to use that platform just to watch that show. You're better off getting the DVD version of your favorite show if you can. So that way then you always have it on hand and you're not hoping that that a streaming service happens to carry it.
Or, certain shows are only on Netflix, and it would be nice if there was more options for those shows to be on other platforms. But again, it all comes down to money. Yeah,
because some big-time actors and comedians have been signing exclusive streaming deals with platforms like Netflix. And this has kind of angered a lot of people because it's like they want to watch these movies or TV shows with these famous actors and celebrities. But it's like, no, you got to subscribe to these specific streaming platforms to watch them, even if you're going to watch absolutely nothing else on these platforms. It's like, yep, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff does just come down to profits and really nothing else, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, just like with Disney only, having certain shows on their Disney Plus channel.
Yeah.
that you might not be able to get on regular Disney subscriptions.
Speaking of Disney Plus, Haley, I heard that they're going to be merging. They're going to be doing something with Disney Plus and Hulu. What was that again?
Well, it's just like Hulu's like just regular like on-demand stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're splitting that and Hulu Live TV into two different things. Hulu Live TV is separating it. It's gonna be merging with Fubo.
So, speaking of streaming services and stuff like that, they seem like they keep raising their prices almost every year, especially Netflix. Do you guys think that potentially they could start to see a decrease in subscribers if they keep raising their prices and they essentially make it so that nobody can afford it anymore?
I do, because they've already raised their prices quite a bit from when they initially were out there. And I guess I go back to what Hailey was saying. So what does that mean for Hulu when they're merging with this other company you're talking about, do you think?
Because Disney Plus owns Hulu. So they're going to basically put all the on-demand content and on Hulu into the Disney Plus app and merge it as one. But the Hulu plus Live TV is going to still be its own separate app.
Yes, they're merging with Fubo. Disney and Fubo have finalized making an agreement on that. So basically, what it means is that it's going to be separate from it. So at some point, it seems like the Disney bundle that's available with Hulu Live TV will no longer be available to have with Live TV.
And I think that could annoy some people, because I know some people prefer to have those apps separate. And they're going to be like, oh, well, now I got to go through all these other streaming services. That's going to drive me nuts. The thing with that is, it's these big media conglomerates all trying to merge with each other. So that way then there's not too much competition, even though it's just going to end up creating a monopoly in the market.
And then it makes you wonder then, okay, are people going to start going back to satellite TV if all these streaming services are making it so complicated, for them to be able to, watch the TV shows they want?
Sometimes people will also go to free services like Tubi, for example, or Pluto, or plenty of the other ones, because there are plenty of free channels on those streaming platforms, and you can usually find the stuff you want, like Scooby-Doo, for example, and watch it for free without having to watch too many ads. And, it's just usually a lot easier than trying to pay for these pricey streaming services just to watch, like, a few shows. Unless it has, like, a lot of shows that you're really dedicated towards and are really interested in, usually subscribing to multiple streaming services is generally a giant waste of time.
And some people might find it frustrating that there's so many services out there. You've got Apple TV, you have Tubi, you have, YouTube TV. I mean, how does one decide, what is best for you, since the majority of the stuff is pretty much the same?
Yeah, that's the problem, is a lot of, like, modern TV shows and movies even are just merely remakes or sequels of, like, older things, because it feels like when it comes to some movies and TV shows, Hollywood in general is just simply running out of ideas. Why? I don't know.
Well, and it's because if they have a franchise that did well, they want to continue to capsize on that, like the latest Toy Story movie, which I felt personally was a very good movie.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, are they going to try to make another one beyond that?
I have heard that there could be another Toy Story. They want like a full trilogy with Bonnie, just like with Andy. There was 3 with him, so they want to do that with her. The thing with Toy Story 5 is people thought that they were going to be going on about how tablets and electronics in general, like smartphones, have turned us all into like zombies, if you will. But it seems like Toy Story 5 merely just focused on Bonnie not really having any friends because she didn't have a tablet. But then she gets a tablet and it just ends up isolating her more. So it really deviated from what people thought it was actually going to be talking about.
Exactly. I mean, you never know what you're going to get until you actually see the movie or watch TV show or whatever.
Speaking of movies that'll be coming out, Shrek 5 has been announced. It is the first Shrek movie in well over 14 years, coming out in 2027. I think it should be interesting because supposedly it's going to be focusing on Shrek's daughter, Felicia, who is going to be voiced by legendary actor Zendaya, by the way. Actress Zendaya. And, many people are wondering, is this going to be as good as the first 4 Shrek movies? Well, I know I saw Puss in Boots: The Last Wish a couple times at this point, and that movie was actually really good.
And I'm wondering, though, why did it take them 5 years to come up with this? Do we think that maybe that's too long of a hiatus between these movies?
5 years?
Yes.
What? What movie?
The Shrek movie.
No, it's been about 14.
Oh, 14.
Yeah, Shrek Forever After came out
I apologize. Okay.
You're good. The last Shrek movie came out in 2010. Then Puss in Boots came out the following year in 2011. And then there was about almost over 10-year gap between Puss in Boots and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. That did drop almost 5 years ago in 2022. And yeah, why did it take so long? I don't know. I think there was just continual developmental delays. They were talking about putting it out in, sometime in the mid to late 2010s, but then it was canceled. Hailey, what do you think? Do you think the new Shrek 5 will be any good or what?
Yeah, it sounds like it'll be really good. And I mean, the thing with this is that because there's been such a long gap, maybe this is giving them plenty of time to actually fully develop a new story that will actually captivate audiences and really continue the spirit of Shrek. Keep the spirit of Shrek alive for new generations.
Yes, because there is a reason. I mean, there have been a couple of Shrek box sets released. We had Shrek, the Ultimate Collect. We had the Complete Trilogy or something from 2019, which included all the Shrek films up to that point, with Shrek the Musical, because Puss in Boots: The Last Wish hadn't come out yet. And then finally, in 23, they released an updated version called Shrek the Ultimate Collection, a 6-film collection featuring every Shrek movie, both of the Puss in Boots movies, Puss in Boots and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And then it also included a bunch of the shorts, I think it included all the shorts from the Shrek films, as well as 5 TV episodes from the Netflix series, The Adventures of Puss in Boots. Basically, that TV series is an example of what they call milking the franchise, where basically you have a really popular TV show, movie, video game, whatever, and they'll basically try to make every type of franchise they can out of it, just to see how much profit they can make.
And I agree with what Hailey said. Maybe this time lapse has given them enough time to come up with fresh ideas to revive the Shrek trilogy so that our younger generation can enjoy, things that we watched when we were younger. Because, we've seen movies where they make too many of them and the franchise gets stale.
Like Jurassic Park, for example. Based on the novel of the same name by Michael Crichton, they've been making these movies since roughly 93. And it's weird to think that the franchise hasn't run out of any gas or steam. They seem to be doing really well. I think they just came out with one last year, and I think they're planning a sequel as well. How long do you guys think they can push the Jurassic Park franchise before it's decided, okay, no more of that, we're done?
I don't know, it's hard to say. The creative minds behind that, because correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Steven Spielberg, excuse me, is a creative mind behind it. So it could be pushed for a long time. Kind of like Star Wars. How long can they continue?
Well, the last main Star Wars film came out several years ago in 2019. They haven't really done too much with it since, because it basically finished off the trilogy. But Star Wars is a highly respected franchise, although again, it's not for everybody. If you don't really care for the sci-fi action animation style that it incorporates, you're probably going to find it a bit boring.
But, and then you have the Minions also coming out with something new, Minions and Monsters.
Yep, that just dropped about a week ago, and it's how far can they push this? Because the first Despicable Me in 2010 was great, then we had the second one, the third one, those were all good. Even the fourth one that dropped back in 24 was not bad. But now it's we're getting to the point where it's how many more of these can they possibly make before it's okay, we need to stop.
Yeah, it's time for Hollywood to try to come up with some fresh ideas, something new.
Yeah, there's a reason why there's no Up 2 or anything like that, because the first Up was just perfect. It's considered one of Pixar's masterpieces. It's considered one of the best films they've ever made. And if they tried to make any more, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't. If they tried to make another one, I'm sure it wouldn't be the same.
Or the B movie. That's just something where you just can't make, anymore because there's not really anything to go off of.
No.
For that.
I don't know. Like, there was just, Hollywood, it seems like nowadays they're highly focused on sequels and prequels and reboots and that kind of stuff because...
And also live action.
That's another thing. That's a good point to talk about. The fact that Disney is coming out with all these live action remakes. They did The Lion King. They've done Aladdin. They just did Lilo and Stitch last year. They're doing Moana as we speak. It just, to me, it reads as Disney is just slowly running out of new ideas. So they're merely just going back and looking into the archives and just making live action reboots of their classic films. Because they're past the point that they were in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s where they were coming out with all these hits. And now it's like we just can't come up with anything fresh anymore. So let's just do all these live action remakes and hope that nobody really notices what we're doing.
That makes me wonder, are they done with the Cars franchise or is there going to be, another one of those movies at some point down the road?
Cars 4 has been rumored for some time, but there hasn't been a Cars movie since Cars 3 in 2017, so it's never really been determined. I think they just came out with something called Cars Jr. on Disney Plus. It's like a kids version, like when they were younger, one of those shows where they try to make them younger, and it's like, I don't know, are they just trying to continue the franchise, or what are they doing? Same thing with Mickey Mouse. It seems like they keep coming out with various versions of that show, and it's like, how long can we push this until we realize that it's not going anywhere anymore?
Well, with the new Austin Power movie that has been officially confirmed that will be coming out here before too long, the next year or two.
Yep.
It just shows you that any franchise, no matter how long it's been, could possibly have another sequel to it.
I don't know, Hailey, would you want to see the new Austin Powers movie when it comes out?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would like to see it. It definitely sounds very interesting.
I've seen pretty much all the films in the franchise. They're all excellent. I mean, the third one, Austin Powers and Goldmember from 2002, that had Beyonce in one of her earliest acting roles, and she did great in that film. But the fourth film was just delayed constantly for various reasons. But now it's finally announced. The funny thing is, Vern Troyer, who played Mini-Me, he sadly died of alcoholism or something like that. Yeah, alcohol-related poisoning in 2017. So they're going to have to figure out a way to discuss the death of his character because, he's not here anymore.
Well, and the other thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Grown Ups sequel they were going to do, I believe, that is only going to be on Netflix.
Yep, just like with one of Adam Sandler's other recent movies. Which one was that again?
Happy Gilmore 2.
Yes, thank you, Hailey. Happy Gilmore 2. That was a Netflix exclusive, and I know some people were definitely peeved when they discovered that because it's like, so we can't watch the film? We have to subscribe to Netflix just to watch it? As I mentioned earlier, these big actors and celebrities signing these like multi-million-dollar deals with these streaming platforms just so they can have their movie on there. It's like, people still like going to the theater. They don't just want to watch everything on a streaming platform in their living room or wherever.
Yeah, and that kind of irritates me because I would love to see Grown Ups, but I'm certainly not going to, I guess, be pressured into signing up for Netflix just to watch, one thing. So, these companies and these, actors will realize they're going to lose money from only putting it out on one platform.
All right. This has been the first episode of the Fresh Finds and Good Times podcast. I'm Jacob Reiling.
I'm Katy Reiling.
I'm Hailey Reiling.
And we would love to know what you think about our first podcast and any insight you might have to the things that we discussed today. So we'd love to hear your feedback.
All right. We will see you next week for the next episode. Have a good night, everyone.